Hi there, Meaning Quest group. It's Pete here, doing something that's new for me, um, kind of an impulse video. I have it lots of times where I watch someone else's video or I just am reading an article and having some thoughts and ideas. And um, yeah, wanted to create a video about what I was thinking about, which is conspiracy theories and how I see that topic related to the meaning quest um, that I think is going on in our culture today. So, to recap that statement, um, I believe we're in a time, and it's Jordan Peterson and John Vervaeke, Professor John Vervaeke from the University of Toronto, that are among two of the people that are pointing to that reality. And Vervaeke has these lectures up called "Escaping the Meaning Crisis," and I've come to see Jordan Peterson as kind of a smaller part of that bigger question. So I, like probably many of you, have acquaintances and former acquaintances that seem to have been deeply engaged in one conspiracy theory or another. Some of the latest ones are related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm making this video several months into that time. And but there are conspiracy theories about a flat that the Earth is really flat, that um, 9/11 attacks on New York were an inside job, and so on and so forth. There was one for a while, haven't heard it for a long time, that Elvis was still alive and you could find him in Burger King. You know, some people really wanted that to be true. So this happens, and I have acquaintances that are into this, and I have others that I've known that where I find it's very hard to get into a conversation about this. Often, a conspiracy theory will have some facts to it, and then this whole other story gets built around that. So, the two things, just to keep myself focused, because I'm doing this with minimal notes. Um, I'm talking about conspiracy theories, and I believe that they are on the rise, or people subscribing to them are on the rise, is evidence of the meaning crisis that we're in. That um, because we're coming out of a time when science was seen as pretty soon going to provide all the answers that we needed to everything, and yet now a new virus has affected the entire planet, and science is not satisfying us in the answers it's giving, and that creates an unrest, and then the societal changes that come with a pandemic create unrest and anxiety, and so people reach for something to explain it all, something to make sense of it, and they're reaching out of a cultural time when we're generally abandoning our trust in science, or we're at least not trusting it to answer all of our questions anymore. It can answer some, and it can answer them well, how the body works, for instance, and engineering questions and math questions. But the reason for existence, science does not address, and that's where the vacuum is. And so we've entered what's usually called a postmodern time, where it no longer works to put a person in a white lab coat holding a particular um, thing to be sold up and saying, this works, this is good for you, and then have it fly off the shelves, as we say. It doesn't work anymore. And now, generally, people are turning to other um, practices, other explanations that don't rely on science. The scientific mindset also was compelled for a time, and in some areas is doing that really well now, to be critical of what was. and to kind of take it apart, to deconstruct it. And that's a valuable process. That's very worthwhile in its own right at times. But what they took apart was the foundations of our society. And so this entire structure is under threat. The entire structure is under threat because the foundation has been picked away at or forgotten. I would say it's even been forgotten. Another video, another time. So people are embracing conspiracy theories because there's a meaning crisis. There's no meta-narrative, no overarching worldview remaining that explains things well in a general sense. So the phrase that I wrote down, which was the point where I decided I should do a video about this for Meaning Quest, is conspiracy theories result from traumatic experiences out of which people search for an explanatory narrative. And I'm going to admit too that I have a lot of curiosity about some of these narratives on the edge, I'll call them. UFOs. I'll always read an article about UFOs or unexplained phenomenon and those kinds of things that fall outside of what we understand right now. And conspiracy theories come into a time like that, and they give 2 or 3 points of very good explanation that makes a lot of sense, or they flip the narrative, the Uber narrative, on its head, and that sort of makes sense, or we just like when that happens. And then out of our trauma of being in a pandemic and trauma of being in a society that has lost its moorings, we embrace this new explanatory narrative. It's often, conspiracy theories are often driven most by accentuating our fears, by playing off of our fears, and our sense of not being in control. So in having a good conspiracy or a good theory to explain what we think is going on, we feel like we're in control again, we're in charge. Because people want to feel the satisfaction of having an explanation for things that are outside of their control. So those are just a few thoughts in this, what I never intended to be a long video, about why conspiracy theories are catching on and why more and more people are subscribing to maybe weirder and weirder ones. Another factor is this very medium by which I will share the video, that there are fewer filters these days for ideas. And that's, again, a positive, and it can be a negative. And so anybody can take an idea, put it out on YouTube or on any platform that they choose, and if they can find a few people to agree with it, then they're often flying into UFO land or Elvis land. Conspiracy theories. Traumatic experience, searching for an explanatory narrative. I hope I've been clear enough that as to how I see that tied to the Meaning Quest group and the meaning crisis that we are in as a society. Till next time, Pete out.